Hey, Het-Heru, this is Kasantma Keparu here, and I'm going to do a video, try to make this quick video, and the title of it is going to be How to Master Mind Reading and Mind Control. The first thing I want to say about this that it's a reality. Yes, you can read minds and you can control people through your thoughts, but there are some requirements to doing that, which I will go into. But I want to talk a little bit about if you may have some doubt around this area. I know a lot of people are saying, well, if we could really read minds or control people, why aren't the masses of people doing this? So let me start out with an explanation as to that. So you understand why this is not kind of like commonplace. We all have this ability, but we have been suppressing it, or it is suppressed. And the reason why it is suppressed is twofold. Number one, as a child growing up, in this Western left brain society, you're naturally in tune to psychic events or psychic phenomena, but your parents condition you and they kind of chastise you for bringing these things up, like for having an imaginary friend or maybe seeing things in the dark. So they are part of the control mechanism that helps to suppress that natural ability that's within all of us. Starting out very early, it is a programming put in place by the global elite to suppress these wonderful powers that we have, because you have to understand who we are, not human beings. We are God man, God woman in development. The other thing is due to the mass collective agreement. So you know where the Bible says, if two or more agree, so shall it be. The mass collective agreement is this. It's similar to the 100 monkey principle, where if you have a collective of people who work together, whether it be praying or meditation, and they visualize or they have an objective that they want to manifest, it comes to fruition. It may take time, but eventually it comes to fruition. So the mass collective agreement, that which is a kind of unwritten agreement that we are agreeing upon, is that the only thing that exists is the physical. If you can't see, hear, feel, and taste it, then it's not a part of reality. But when the reality that we're experiencing is only one portion, we know that there's at least 11 dimensions, right? So there are things that we can't see that exist. There are interdimensional beings that exist that we cannot see. And there's a reason for that. But understand this: the mass collective agreement is a way for the global elite to control us again, by having us indoctrinated into an ideology through mass media, Hollywood, television, major universities, institutions, to say that anything that's deals with the supernatural or psychic phenomena is not real, it's mumbo jumbo. And when you buy into that, when you accept that belief system, because you're God man and God woman, you have no choice but to manifest that reality. So you're manifesting reality in which you don't have your powers. You can't experience the totality of what it is to be an infinite being with unlimited abilities. So those are the two main reasons why you may think, well, if this power really exists, why isn't everybody using it? And again, number one is children were taught to suppress these abilities. Number two, the mass collective agreement. And going with the mass collective agreement is very difficult to counteract that, because Netter, Source, or God put in place a safety mechanism, and that safety mechanism is Ma'at, meaning that there's an interconnectedness and interdependence between things, living things, all things in the universe. So that means that if I were to do wrong, my left brain would think, oh, well, it's not going to affect me, but God put that safety mechanism in place to where, whether I like it or not, I am connected to every other being, and what I do to them indirectly affects me. So, because you accept a belief system, those people who may be in China will be affected by belief systems, which brings me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is um, thought patterns, thoughts. Thoughts are not necessarily your own. Thoughts travel. Consider a fish in a tank. The water, if the water is polluted, the fish will die. Not just one fish, but all fish. So the water would be like the thoughts. And those thoughts are traveling. You could be walking and pick up on thoughts and wonder why you have this idea, because there's a saying that we use called thoughts are transferable. So you're not necessarily responsible for your thoughts, but if you accept it, then you make it your own and you are responsible for it. If you let it go, just take it in and let it go, then you're protected. Okay. So we're going to move on to the other thing, which is state. State is the state that you find yourself in. Which, what emotional state are you in? Is it anger? Is it joy? Is it jealousy? Is it love? And the saying that we have is state is transferable. Whatever state you experience can be transferred to other people. So if I am with, for example, my mate and I want her to feel joy, I first have to feel joy, and that will transfer on to her. Again, the analogy of the fish in the tank, the water. Now, let me go into the technique here about mind control and mind reading and how it works exactly. The one thing I want to say is that this technique I developed just naturally. Luckily, it wasn't suppressed when I was a child, and it was something I picked up on. But more importantly, because I'm a Pisces, and Pisces are water signs, fish, hence the analogies I'm using. Pisces are more likely to be able to use this ability and nurture it and cultivate it, because most water signs have a natural innate tendency to use this ability. It becomes more difficult if you're more left brain, because a lot of Pisces are creative artists, and that's a right brain aspect. But the left brain is very segregative, very factual, very cold, and analytical. Hence, as I have Godsey Beck here, he deals with thoughts, he deals with facts, he deals with linear thinking, and he also deals with the left brain. So if you're a very left brain person, the techniques that I'm going to reveal to you are going to be challenging. It's going to be a little difficult for you because it's more geared toward right brain. And again, part of the collective agreement, part of the mental conditioning that we've undergone in this Western society is to only think out of try to predominantly think out of the left brain. You're always using the left and right brain. You're always integrated in terms of your brain, in terms of using both sides of the brain. But there is one you lean on or one you prefer rather than the other. And this society is keen on pushing you more toward the left brain. And we have to get out of that. The best way to be is dual brain. All right. And that's what ancient Egypt, Kemet, this is how they built the pyramids. This is how they were able to travel to different dimensions and communicate psychically, because they were dual brain thinkers. All right. So I'm just going to make sure I'm covering everything in my notes here before I go into the technique, And the interesting thing about this technique is that I inadvertently was using it, and I was inadvertently susceptible to it. Because I found myself easily communicating my thoughts to the people, and they would pick up on them, and they could actually read my mind and read what I was thinking. And if you want to do some further study into this, into the reality that this does exist, you need to research institutions like Tavistock, which is a think tank institution, and they were doing experiments with the CIA into I believe it called Project Bluebird, where they would take CIA agents and see if they could hack their minds and see if they could communicate thoughts over long distances. So if you read the studies and the things that they did, you'll find out this was actually a reality. And now what they're using today is they're using machines to try and decode your mental state. So they can read the emotions, the vibrations in the brain through things like an fMRI, to pick up and decode the vibrations from the brain and to translate those into a language pattern that can be read and interpreted. So this is a reality that's going on, and you need to explore this more and understand that we are not the people that we're told we are. We're not limited beings. We're beings with fantastic powers and abilities. And if we cultivate those, we could really change this planet. But you have the 1%ers, the global elite, the rich and powerful, who want to control the planet. And in order to do that, they first have to lie to you and say you have no abilities. You must depend on an intermediary, meaning a priest, or pastor to communicate with source or nectar or God, which is not true because you can intuit wisdom and knowledge on your own. You don't need a book. You don't need a pastor or someone to confess your sins. You don't need that. You have everything you need. You come complete. Now let's talk about the techniques. We talked about your thoughts are not your own. Thoughts are out there and they travel. We talked about how your state is transferable if you want somebody to be in a certain state. And this is part of healing. Het-Heru is healing. So if you want somebody to be in a certain state, you have to get into that state first. For example, Het-Heru joy. Joy is a healing energy. So you can actually work with that healing energy and transfer it to individuals who may be sick, maybe not doing too well in the hospital. But that's taking us a little further down the rabbit hole. But let's get into this. Okay, first thing. All right. So the technique is this. And before I go into that, if you love this video and you want to see more, just like the video below and subscribe to the channel so you'll get notifications when more videos are made. All right. So with that said, there is a saying that which goes, the eyes are the keys to the soul, and this is how the technique works. Let's say, for example, and you can the best way to do this is to practice with your mate or someone who's a very close friend. Don't practice this with a stranger. It's not going to work as well. Let's say you sit down with your mate, and I want you to stare them directly in the eyes. All right, and when you're staring them in the eyes, and try to again make sure that they're more right brain than left brain, and there are tests that you can administer. You can Google and find out these tests, which side is your predominant brain hemisphere. But try to get someone who maybe is a water sign to work with you, because it'll be easy for you guys to transfer energy, transfer thoughts, and read each other's mind. And a lot of people do this anyway. Couples who've been married for a long time pick up on each other's thoughts. But that's a little bit different because when you're married with somebody, you get into like a synchronicity and alignment. So, but this technique, again, get with somebody. I want you to stare them directly into the eyes. This is the exercise you're going to be practicing, right? And now at this point, you need to just glaze your eyes a little bit, right? And then when you're staring at them, you do this for a few minutes, you're going to basically start picking up on emotional vibrations. It's important that you are receptive to what comes into you. The first time you do this, you're not going to pick up on the correct thoughts. But if you're doing this properly in a very relaxed state and your eyes are just a little gazed or glazed or whatever, you'll start to pick up on the thoughts that they are having. And you can confirm that by asking them and saying, I'm getting this impression from you. I'm getting these thoughts. Is this correct? And very simple technique. And you'll if you do it and work at it, you'll notice that you'll start to read their minds. Now, it doesn't work if a person has their psychic defenses up, and yes, we do have that. You can protect yourself from people from reading your mind by putting up your psychic defense. And what this means is you become you're more in terms of a biological thing. You're pumping more adrenaline. You're more left brain, and you have a lot of the things that are preoccupying your mind, which puts up that psychic wall, so that somebody cannot read your thoughts, and it makes it more difficult. But for those who are very good at mind control, they can crash through that psychic wall and read what you're thinking. But that takes somebody who's done this for years and years and years. Now, it's not going to work at first if the person that you're working with is unwilling and doesn't want to share their thoughts with you. So it's not going to work, But if they are in agreement with you, then when you're staring in the eyes, and that's very important, the eyes are important, and it's a deep penetrating stare, you're going to pick up on those impressions. You're going to pick up on those thought forms. And they may come, they most likely they'll come to you as an emotion. They're not going to come to you as a verbal, like, oh, you're thinking of pizza. No, it's going to come to you as an emotion. It's going to come to you as a feeling. and that feeling needs to be transferred into words and definitions. So you'll have to work at that. You know what I mean? So that's the first level of this, and how it can work. Now, when I was starting out in this, I had a lot of problems looking people in the eyes, because I knew if I looked them in the eyes, they would pick up on my thoughts, because I was very good at communicating psychically, you know. And the people that you'll find that who are really masters of this are people who are empaths, because they feel energy. They the energy is all around them that they're picking up on, you know. All right. So with that said, that's how you are basically picking up the thoughts and reading their minds. And again, there's a more advanced levels to this, but I want to start this out, and you need to work on this exercise until you start to really get on point what the other person is thinking. When you start to be accurate in your interpretations of the emotions and the feelings that you're getting from them, and you're communicating to them, and they're confirming that, then you know you're on the right track. The other thing is communicating and controlling them in a way. And the way that you do this is very similar with the eyes again, the deep penetrating stare. But this time, you're going to pick certain specific thoughts in your mind that you want to communicate to them, and it's going to be a strong emotion behind the thought. You're going to say, for example, if I'm hungry, you'll take the idea of hunger or the image of hunger and put a strong emotion behind it. And when you're staring at that person, they're going to pick up and feel hunger as well. Because remember, we said, state is transferable. So whatever state you're in, they're going to feel it. And again, it's all in the eyes. It's very important that you're communicating this through the eyes. And if you study the ancient oracle, the I-Ching, the Chinese oracle, it has the 61st hexagram. And in the 61st hexagram, it talks about psychic communication. It talks about, like, you cannot, how do you get past, and it's really good. It's a really good hexagram, because it talks about criminals, individuals who operate in the underworld. It's like, well, how do you change them? How do you reach to them and change their hearts? And it talks about that psychic communication to where you get past all of the exterior stuff, all of the thoughts, and you get to the heart of who they are, and then you're able to influence them and communicate with them. And it builds that alignment and that kind of synchronicity to where they feel what you're feeling, you feel what they're feeling, you're both in sync, and it is more, and that is really how you change a person. That is really how a person reaches an epiphany in life, because they're able to, you're able to touch them in a way that no one else can touch them, and it's through that psychic communication of getting past the barriers of what we call is the verbal discourse, meaning that you can talk to someone and tell them that they're doing wrong, and most people will just ignore it. But if you psychically communicate to them with strong emotional intent, it changes the person, and that is a way of controlling them. Um, and you can actually take that to the next level of directing their actions. You know what I mean? When you're starting to have those strong emotional vibrations, and they're picking up on those vibrations, again, they have to be more right brain than left brain, then they'll start to act accordingly. In the beginning, it's going to be trial and error for you. It's not going to work very well in the beginning, but as you work on it and perfect it, you're going to see amazing results. Now, how can you use this in a very positive way? Because I don't think you should try to go around manipulating people and situations. Well, I've used this, for example, in job interviews. I've been very successful in job interviews where I'm sitting there being interviewed, and instead of being cross-examined or feel like I'm in like an interrogation room, I use this by staring deeply at the person who's interviewing me, having strong emotional intent, like I'm the best candidate for this position. I am an expert in my field. And then I become more elated and excited, and they start to pick up on those thoughts, pick up on that, and they start to say to themselves, well, maybe this person is the right person for this position. They're great. And you may not see the result right then and there. What will probably happen is they'll go back to their office and thoughts will start to hit them like, hey, I think this guy is the right person for this. And you can call this a Jedi mind trick or whatever you want, but this is a very powerful way of controlling and directing a person. You can do this with your mate if you guys are having trouble. Maybe you're going through some difficulties. Whatever the source of the difficulty is, one person cheating, there's an issue of money in the relationship, or just whatever. If you take these moments to sit there, or if when you're working with them, stare directly into their eyes and have the strong emotional intent with the objective, you'll find that over a short course of time, they will start acting accordingly based on those thoughts and objectives you implanted into their mind. You know, and as I said before, be very careful too, because there are certain people who are very open psychically to picking up on impressions and energies. So if, for example, if your mate is just happens to be a Pisces or right brain and very good at that, it's hard for you to lie then, because it'll pick up on that. They'll read your thoughts and pick up on the fact that you may be lying or maybe not telling the whole truth of a matter, you know? And if you study the field of criminology and things like that, you know, one of the things is I'm very good at picking up on people when they're lying, you know, and you know that was a talent I developed very early on and didn't realize that what I was doing. I didn't realize this was part of psychic communication, you know. I just thought like, hey, I can read people, but I wasn't really reading them in the left brain sense of looking at their inflections, their eyebrows, and which is where their eyes went left, right, up, or down. No, I was psychically going inside them and then finding out if they were telling the truth or not by communicating directly with their minds or spirit or however you want to phrase it. So that's basically the technique level one. And I encourage you to experiment with this. But more importantly, what I want you to understand is that, you know, what we consider today as, oh, this metaphysical mumbo jumbo, you know, we're taught in this society to shy away from the very things that can grant us power and liberate us. So we have to start moving toward those things and understand that we don't need someone else to grant our wishes. We don't need someone else to empower us, that we have the power within ourselves. We just lack the knowledge of self in order to bring that out. And with this psychic communication, mind reading, and mind control, it takes time to perfect. Work at this. I'm telling you that the results you're going to see are going to be mind blowing. Just slowly start working at this, and what you will find is that your whole world will change. You will be able to influence people in a very profound way. You know, I used to do a lot of motivational speaking, but it's very limited in how you can motivate somebody and get them to take action. But when you're communicating on that psychic level, then it's a whole different arena. It's a whole different world that opens up to how you can assist them, how you can help them. You understand what I mean? So, and especially with young children too, there's a real good opportunity there to communicate to them psychically, because children are they're ancient souls who come back to the planet and reincarnate. And they carry with them some of those experiences from their past lives, and they are fresh in new minds that have not been conditioned and programmed by this society, you know. So with that being said, I hope this technique helps you. If you have any questions, feel free to write in the comment box below. Subscribe to this channel. So this is Kasarkma Keperu. Until next time, that is all for now. Bye.